No, that was Abraham. Moshe?
Again, Chag Sameach to Los Angeles. The idea of staying up all night and studying, more specifically on the night of, like the Yom Hilulah of the Ari HaKadosh, this idea of staying up all night and the benefits are clearly spelled out in the Ari HaKadosh's Shar Ruach HaKodesh, in the gates of the Holy Spirit, but which means the level of consciousness where time, space, and motion no longer have dominion. And in that volume, page 35, I read the following: V'agav nomar chidush, and I would like to share with you something new. Ki hinei misha na'or kol halayla v'lo yishan klal. Whoever is up all night and does not sleep at all, v'osek b'torah kol oto layla, and the person indulges in the study of Torah this entire night, yeh niftar me'onish karet echad, im nitkayev chaz v'shalom. So the Ari HaKadosh is providing us with this information that one who remains awake for the entire evening has the benefit of removing a karet. Now, what is a karet? On certain negative activities, not all, for instance, if someone steals, then he has created negativity around him. However, that doesn't mean that the person's cut off from the light. He has, as the Ari mentions when he discusses certain aspects of the prohibitions, meaning the reason for the prohibitions in the first place in the Torah is because these negative activities create negative forces around us, which constantly are there to prevent us from fulfilling certain thoughts or certain objectives that we might have. These forces are always there to lead us into another path, etc. Then there are those more stringent prohibitions, those prohibitions which the onish, or the punishment, but of course we know there is no such idea as punishment, meaning punishment from God, but rather how the person himself or herself inflicts upon oneself the result of this creation of a negative force. The Ari says it's actually a negative angel that is there in place, so to prevent any fulfillment, whatever might be the case. When it comes to matters which are more severe, meaning negative activity, which involve karet meaning, from the word karet, it is a noun, but nevertheless it means a person becomes literally cut off from the light force. Literally cut off from the light force. Which means that, as we understand in medical terms, so we're told that a person undergoes a degenerative process after a certain age. There's a force that's creating this gradual disintegration of the human body. Karet places a very specific time frame around how rapidly and when this degenerative process begins and will end, meaning it will unfortunately cut the person's life, chas v'shalom, in a time span much quicker than normally would have been the case. This is called karet. This force that shortens the lifespan of the individual. And so says the Ari, that one who remains awake the entire evening, and for that matter, kol laila, says the Ari, kol laila achat poteh karet achat. So if we should have, for whatever reason, been participated in the kind of negative activity that results in karet, by being awake an entire night, one removes one of these onesh, one of these negative resultant activities, which bring about ultimately chas v'shalom, death. And so one of these forces, if one has created many of these negative forces because of many negative activities that have the severity of creating a karet, meaning cut off from the light, then by this process of studying at night and being awake this entire evening, we remove one of these negative forces from our midst. So this is the reason why the idea of remaining awake all evening came from. Now I would like to continue with a very strange Zohar. Rather, I should say the Kabbalists who have interpreted the Zohar as such. There is no Zohar on the Parshat Devarim, the first section of Deuteronomy. There is no Zohar, while there is one for every other section. For Devarim, there isn't. And we also know that the sages have so scheduled the reading of the entire Torah throughout the year into weekly portions. Devarim, this first section of Deuteronomy, will always be read the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. Every year in and year out, the calendar is so structured that if there is a leap year, then what they do is structure some of the weekly readings where there may be a double reading of two sections. Then they divide this one section of two readings into 2 different weeks, and all for the purpose that this Devarim, this first reading of Deuteronomy, will always take place the Shabbat before Tisha B'Av. And this year, since Tisha B'Av, the 9th day of Av, the day that the Zohar has declared is the day where Satan has full control over all the activities that pertain to earth and mankind. The Shabbat, this Shabbat, preceding Tisha B'Av, which falls on Sunday, the Parsha that we read will be Parshat Devarim. And there is no Zohar. There is no Zohar. Why is there no Zohar? But what is stranger than that is that next week's reading, Parshat Vaetchanan, the next section of Deuteronomy, which will be read following Tisha B'Av, always following Tisha B'Av, the Kabbalists state right at the beginning of this Zohar, which explains for us the section of Vaetchanan, again, which is the second portion or second reading in Deuteronomy, that the section of Devarim is really there, but it's concealed. The Zohar did provide us with an interpretation on the weekly portion of Devarim. Well, then where is it? Why is it blank? Parshat, and I quote now from the Kabbalists, Parshat Hilulah hu b'Parshat Balak. Kisham beito. Where will we find the Zohar's explanation on Devarim? We find it in Balak. Kisham beito. Because that's where its home is. V'kach hiskimu hakadmonim. And this, many of the other Kabbalists of yesteryear also agree that this section in Balak, which I'll shortly refer to, is really the section that belongs to the reading of Parshat Devarim. Well, if it was, then why didn't they place it there? Why leave Parshat Devarim blank? And where is this section? Parshat Balak, from paragraph 29 until paragraph 133. 133. It is not the entire reading of Balak, the section read in Numbers, the section that we read just a few short weeks ago, but it's part of this section of Balak. And it runs again from paragraph 29 in the Ashlag edition, of course, because most of you, I hope, are familiar with the original Zohar that comes in three books. They are referred to as Bereshit, Shemot, and the last three books considered section 3. There are 3 sections, and they all appear almost as one long paragraph. It was Rabbi Ashlag that divided the Zohar into sections, meaning each Zohar into its with a notation as to what the subject matter is being referred to, and also divided the Zohar into paragraphs. This did not exist prior to 1955. Anyone who would pick up an old edition of the Zohar would be reading one paragraph throughout each section. Wouldn't know where the section of Balak begins or where it ends. And that which was contained in each section. So this great contribution made the interpretation and understanding of the Zohar so much more understandable. Now, the section that the Kabbalists claim belongs to the interpretation of Parshat, or the section of Devarim, is the matter concerning Mamad HaYenukah. Strange as it sounds, this section, HaYenukah, Yenukah means the young child. That is the topical caption. The young child, Yenukah. And I'll read the first 2 sections of this, and maybe we'll come to some understanding as to why this section was omitted in the Zohar itself and concealed elsewhere, and without the Kabbalists informing us that this section that is actually placed in the Parshat Balak should be that Parshat which will provide us with an interpretation and meaning of section Devarim. And I read from the Zohar. This is Parshat Balak, page 13, Yud Gimel, and paragraph 29, Kaftet. Rabbi Yitzchak v'Rabbi Yehuda hayu holchim baderech. They were walking along the way. Igiu la'oto makom shel kvar Sachnin. And they came to this village, little village, known as the village of Sachnin. Shahaya Sham Rav Amnuna Saba. And there lived Rav Amnuna Saba, the big fish as he was referred to, the ancient fish. V'nitarchu etzel ishto. And they were invited by the wife of Rav Amnuna Saba to stay with them. Shahayala ben echad katan. And she had a small child. V'kol yom haya bebet hasefer. And each day he would go to school. Ba'oto yom ala mi bet hasefer u'ba lebeito. And this day he went to school and came back and returned to his house. Ra'a elu hachachamim. And he saw these wise men, students of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai, Rabbi Ashlag and Rabbi Yehuda. Amra lo imo karev le'elu hanashim elyonim v'tekabel mehem berachot. And the mother of the child tells this little boy, come close to these very spiritual, elevated people and receive from them a blessing. Karav elehem, and he came close to them. Ba'od shahaya karav elehem, and the moment that he came close to them, chazal achorav, he withdrew. He withdrew. Amali imo, and he says to his mother, Eini roseh lekarev elehem, I do not want to approach these people. Ki yom zeh lo karu kriyat shema, because in this day they didn't pray the kriyat shema. V'kach lamdu li, and I have learned, and they taught me so, shekol mi she'ena kore kriyat shema bizmano, hu b'nidui kol oto hayom. Anyone who does not read the kriyat shema bizmano in its day, and we are fortunate enough to understand what the kriyat shema is all about. It is not, as most people are under the impression, even unfortunately to this very day, that it refers to the total devotion, the total subserviency to the Creator, but rather through this prayer, through this configuration of 248 words, these words channel the light force into the bone structure and ultimately strengthens the immune system. This is the reason for the reading of the Kriyat Shema. And he says, and if one who does not read the Kriyat Shema each day in its time, that day he had failed. That day he is vulnerable. He is vulnerable. He is vulnerable. In other words, the immune system requires a daily injection. So is this little child stating to his mother. And this day, without that infusion of the Kriyat Shema, these people are vulnerable, meaning vulnerable to whatever negative forces are around. I mean, we know that while the medical establishment does not know why one contracts a disease and one doesn't, etc., according to this little child who claims this is what he was told and this is what he learned, that one who fails to read the Kriyat Shema each day becomes vulnerable to whatever might have entered into the presence of the individual who did not read the Kriyat Shema. He becomes vulnerable. That doesn't mean everyone who is vulnerable, chas v'shalom, will contract a disease, but the person is vulnerable. And therefore, he says, I don't want to approach these people because since they are vulnerable, then it might be contagious. And I don't want to approach. Now, we will learn later on that this child was the ripe old age of 6. And of course, this is what he could feel. He could know. Obviously, this child was not a normal child. It was a child that could read like we read things which might be right before us. Although, as we stated in the first learning period that we had this evening, we now understand the rule of the paradox. If you say you're from Missouri, then you can be sure you're never going to see anything. If you say you're not from Missouri and you don't see anything, the chances are you can then acquire sight. That's the paradox we live in this world. What's more is less. What's less is more. You want to breathe in the air, you have to breathe out the air. The whole world operates on the basis of a paradox. The paradox is what's true. What you see is probably not what is. What you do not see is probably what you will see. So in this case, this child had this elevated state of consciousness where he could just look at these two people, these two very spiritual, elevated consciousness people, and understand that they did not recite the Kriyat Shema that day. Aim Shomu v'Tamu. They heard what this little boy was telling his mother, and they v'Tamu. They were startled. Herimu yedehem u'balchu oto. They picked up their hands and immediately blessed them. Amru, and they said, Vadai kachu. It is so as this little child has just told us. Shelo karanu Kriyat Shema. We did not read Kriyat Shema today. However, sheyom hazeh asaknu b'chatan b'kala shelo haya lehem dai tzorkam. V'hayu mitachrim להתחבר. ולא היה איש שישתדל בשבילם. What happened was, there was a case of a bride and a groom, and they did not have sufficient money to get married. And, in fact, they delayed the wedding. And there was no one there that could act on their behalf to try to raise sufficient funds so that they could proceed and rent an apartment, or whatever the necessities were at the time. And we were involved with making an attempt to gather together sufficient funds so that they could be married. And therefore, we did not, in fact, read the Kriyat Shema today. And whoever is involved in one positive activity, in one mitzvah, patur min mitzvah, then he no longer becomes vulnerable. He does not have to. He is patur min mitzvah. If this is an activity that requires time now, immediately. And therefore, they told him, it's true, we did not. But however, we did not become vulnerable because we were creating other positive activity. I should say, angels around us, forces around us, that we would not have become vulnerable, despite the fact that we did not read the Kriyat Shema. Amru lo, and they told him, B'ni, b'ma yadata, how did you know that we did not read the Kriyat Shema? Amar lahem, bereach malbushechem, hikalti. Don't you understand, he says to them? That consciousness prevails on the physical. It is not the physical that prevails on a person. Yes, we know that a person dresses well. People say, what? He must be a brilliant man, right? If he dresses well, then he must be a smart man. You know, that one has nothing to do with the other. Or if he dresses well, he must be a good man. Because if he dresses like a schlumper, with torn clothes and so on, he must be stupid. Society does look upon people with their outward dressing. However, we know the opposite is true. That the outward appearance, not that we are condoning everyone going around with, but we do believe in the principle that Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah should not be a fashion show, and therefore we dress very modestly. We dress in white. Dress in white is so simple. All you need is a shirt and a pair of white pants, and that's it. That doesn't indicate, we're not doing that so that we can, I guess indirectly maybe that's what the Zohar meant when he said that men should go dressed in white. It might have been the reason, because white is white. There's no different colors, no different designs, and so on. Just simply white. And so he said that I could tell by the way you influenced, literally, the clothes that you wear, that I could recognize that you had not read the Kriya Shema. Ki kisher karafti elechem, when I came close to you, I could smell your clothes. I can smell your clothes. And of course, he wasn't talking about the clothes. Maybe it had food stains and it had an odor. He wasn't even discussing that kind of reach, meaning that kind of smell. But he could connect. He could touch almost touch their consciousness. Tamu, and they became even more confused. Yoshvu, they sat down, Notlu Yedehem, they washed their hands, Va'achlu Lechem, they broke bread together. Rabbi Yehuda haya yadav meluch lachlot. Rabbi Yehuda, one of the two students of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, his hands were dirty. V'nachal yadavu berach. And he was going to wash his hands and make the blessing over bread. Miterem shenatal yadav, and before he washed his hands, Amalehem hayeled, and the little child tells to this Rabbi Yehuda, Im talmidei de Rav Shammai hachasid atem, lo haya lachem levarech biyadayim mizuhamot. That if you really are the students of this Shammai Hasid, meaning beside the students of Rabbi Shimon, there was another person that we rarely see. In fact, I think this is the only place that the Zohar mentions this person's name. Now, he may not have been an individual, or it may not have been even an individual that lived in that period. But in any event, he says, if you were really, meaning if you were cognizant of what this Rabbi Shammai said, Lo haya lachem levarech biyadayim mezuamot. You should never have even come over to me. Remember, the mother said, come over to the child and receive a blessing. If your hands were dirty, how dare you think of blessing me if your hands are dirty? And I will continue with one more story, and then, because then goes on this whole discourse of this young child revealing secrets of the Torah. But I think here, right at the very beginning, through this dialogue between the child and these two students, I think we will understand. No, I hope we will understand. I don't know what the answer is yet, but I guess we'll soon get the answer. Patach ota hayeled v'amar. And this child began and said, addressing the Kohen in the tabernacle or in the temple. The priests were told that when you come to the tabernacle, you must wash your hands because you can die. If you don't wash your hands, you can die. Lamadnu mikra hazeh, and we learn from this verse, shemisha einu doeg lezeh, v'nireh b'fnei hamelach b'yadayim meluch lachot, chayav mitah. That if one wants to pray, or if one wants to do anything of a spiritual nature, he must wash his hands. We learn that because it says when the priest was coming to the tabernacle, they were immediately told they must wash their hands. You cannot pray or you cannot perform something of a spiritual nature without washing your hands. Ma'u atam, what is the reason? Mishum sheyadav shel adam yoshvot beromo shel olam. The hands of people. Why we believe that the hands are instruments by which we can physically make contact with something that is physical. Said this little child, the hands of people do not sit here. Do not refer to, and are not here for the purpose of providing us with the physical needs of eating food and etc., writing and so on, but rather the hands of human beings are directly connected beromo shel olam, into the upper celestial realm of the universe. Etzba achat yesh biyado shel adam v'hi ha'etzba she'erim u'Moshe. And one finger, says Rabbi Ashlag, which finger is this? That is the middle finger. Middle finger, which is kavam sa'i, the middle finger, central column, is keneged Moshe shehu kavam sa'i k'Moshe katav lefanenu. This middle finger, and I think someone once mentioned to me that this finger is sensitive to every part of the entire body. Would that be correct? The middle finger.
Saturn.
What's that?
It's Saturn.
No, I understand, but it's well, in any event.
It's innervated by both sides of the hand.
What's that?
Both sides of the hands all connect. It's two nerves that connect that little finger. So most of the fingers are one of the other nerves with the sides of the arm.
Well, I someone once told me that. Maybe it's correct. But anyway, through this middle, the Zohar states that this middle finger is in touch with every part of in touch with every part of the body. And so this little child is stating the importance of keeping one's hand clean. And then they proceed on to discuss some very deep subjects, very interesting subjects. We may continue this maybe in the second section. In any event, what I've just read somehow relates to the explanation of Devarim. And why was it placed here? Why in Balak? And what is the connection to the to this reading of this week, Devarim? The week of Devarim is called the week of the most intense severity of judgment of the entire year, which culminates with Tisha B'Av. Every year, Devarim will be in this period. So, the idea that this this section should be placed in Balak already provides us with an indication as to why it's in Balak. Because Balak and Bilam, both of them represented Amalek. Both of them represented the idea of uncertainty, the trademark of all chaos, pain and suffering that exists in the world. We all are tormented because we do not have the certainty of the future. We do not have the certainty of the realm that we cannot grasp. And therefore, because this week is the week of chaos, the epitome of all pain and suffering, I guess this section is placed in Bilam and Balak, because if it was placed right here in Devarim, Satan would be prepared for it. But we're kind of addressing the same matter, trying to understand that our hands and our consciousness is connected to a higher realm. If we fail to make that connection, then we fail in our effort to overcome the uncertainty in our lives. But we'll continue this after the next session. We'll have a break now. So to continue on with this idea as to why the Sefer Devarim, the Parsha of Devarim, and its explanation and interpretation was placed here in the Parshat Balak. And furthermore, what we have just read does not seem to have any connection with the Parsha of Devarim. Looking closely at the Parsha, certainly at the beginning of the Parsha, it merely discusses their travels, etc. And here we're discussing a little child who seems to have unusual powers of bringing together into one unified whole all events that take place while they may not even take place in front of him.
Okay.
It's very different from everybody else to stay awake. There's no lights to that one.
What's to do what? You leave the lights on?
Where's the lights on?
I can tell them the quarters.
No, it's between a half hour.
No, it's about 15 minutes. Seguro?
He doesn't make
It's better. The way it was? It doesn't matter. Whatever you used to do, get used to it.
The conversation continues in order for us to understand a little clearer the inference of the Kabbalists as to why this section is the explanation of Devarim, and also why they chose, or why the Zohar chose to incorporate this particular section dealing with this little child into the Parshat of Balak. There's another little incident here in this dialogue between these two students and the little child. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, B'ni. And Rabbi Yehuda says to this little child, my son, Shem Abicha Mahu. What is the name of your father? Shatak al Yeled Rega Echad. And he was quiet. Kam v'halach el imo v'nashak ota. He did not respond to the question, but rose up and went to his mother and kissed her. Amala, and he said to her, Imi, my mother, al avi sha'lu oti elu hachachamim. Im omer lahem. Mother, they've asked me a question about my father, and should I answer them? Amra lo, imo. His mother answers, Bini, my son, but Dr. Otam kshedim hem? Did you investigate these people? Are they spiritual people? Are they people of that you can trust? Amar hare badakti otam v'lo masati otam karui. But when I did investigate these people, I did not find them to have been properly in a proper spiritual state. Lach shalo imo v'chazar eleim. And his mother then kept quiet, and he returns to them. Amalahem, atem sha'altem alavi. You have asked me about my father. Ukva nistalek min olam. He already disappeared from the world. He left this world. Ubekol yom shechasidim kedoshim holchim baderech. And you should know about my father, that wherever righteous people, spiritual people, walk along the way, meaning not only literally walking, but along their path, he will always be found to be following them. And if you are truly elevated consciousness people, how come you didn't experience or feel the presence of my father as you proceeded, as you walked into this house, etc.? And he continues, and I noticed in you that you had not read Kriyat Shema that I told you. Now, ani roeh bachem, and now I observe within you she'enchem kedoshim elyonim, that you're not even very spiritual people. Ki avi lo ra kadosh rochev al hachamo, because you didn't notice even that my father's presence was behind you, because he is always present, and people feel the presence of my father. Shelo yolech acharav chamo kedei lizvol ola Torah. And keven shelo zachitim shavi yachamer acharechem, and because you did not experience or did not sense that my father was walking and following with you, I will not therefore tell you who my father was. Rabbi Yitzchak, through his companion Rabbi Yitzchak, it appears to me as if this child is not even a person. Ochlu, and they ate. V'oto yeled haya omer divrei Torah v'chidushei Torah, and this child was speaking divrei Torah, revealing secrets of the Torah that they had never heard. Amru tunuvin levarech. Let us do grace after meals together. Amar lahem yafa amatem mishum she'Hashem hakadosh baruch hu eidem mitbarech b'brachazu ela b'hazmana. This is the conversation. This whole section that we've just read, and he continues to speak and reveal secrets of the Torah, at which point the students returned to Rabbi Shimon, lefnei Rabbi Shimon, and they come before Rabbi Shimon, v'sipru lo hamaseh, and they tell him all that transpired between themselves and this little boy, Tamar. And Rabbi Shimon was not bewildered, but he was in amazement. Amar kama yafehu, how beautiful this is, that a little child can reveal, and they had already discussed the revelations of Torah and secrets that this little boy had revealed to them. And he says how beautiful it is. Aval lo yaleh b'shem, but he will not live a life of longevity. Why? Because Eitzta kishiyale oro ole lefi sha'a umiyad mitchabe v'nishka. This little boy is like a young tree, a thin tree that has not fully developed. When there is so much light around this tree, so much fire around this tree, how long will it last? It glows, but for a short while. And he therefore said that this child would shortly die. And Rabbi Shimon continued. His father, as we mentioned before, was Rav Hamnuna Saba, the great fish, the ancient fish. His father, when he left this world, he was literally, he was literally of an elevated stature like the Shekhinah. Just as the Shekhinah could harness any of the forces that were prevalent in the universe, so could he. Vasapri lamala, and he also left over in our world, bilamata, meaning his little child. Hayiti oseh shelo yuchal mi lishlot alav. But however, there was no one that could prevail that this little child could be free of whatever forces were going to bring his short life to an end. But his mother will not see the pain of this child, meaning that she will die before the child. And so it was, and the little child died. We also know that the Ari HaKadosh lived 38 years. Some might say that he lived a short life. But how many times have we expressed the idea that there are some people who live one day as if it is 70 years, and then there are those who live 70 years and live those 70 years as if all that had transpired was one day. Because it depends what kind of impression is being left by the individual. Is he just coming into this world to walk out of this world? What contribution? How will he be remembered? And I don't mean being remembered in a way that the newspapers or there is world recognition that this individual has left them some legacy for the ongoing generations. But each one of us have something that we've come into this world to leave after we've gone from this world. Some activity that made this world just slightly better, so that we will never be like an ant that came into this world, a fly that comes into this world, and before you know it, they're out and they're gone. The Ari, in his 38 years, while it may sound for most of us to have been a short life, nevertheless, his contribution lingers on so far for hundreds of years. His legacy has changed people. His students of his students, until this very day. So the fact that he lived only 38 years in times relative to time, nevertheless, he had lived hundreds of years. His is a special legacy. So we cannot measure time, because time is something which is irrelevant. It is not something of a stable nature. We've learned that only in this century. The same is true for the child. What this child had revealed and left as a legacy, because there's a discourse here that is too lengthy for us to go into every aspect of it, but he revealed, and for us to this very moment, to this evening, a legacy that we are now repeating of this little child, of the experience of this child. So did he die at a very young age? What is young? And if someone lives to the ripe old age of 190, to the ripe old age of 90, all right? What does that mean? And it is normal for people to respond when someone passes away. The usual question is, well, how long did he live? Someone says, oh, he was 99. Oh, 99, and he lives to a ripe old age. But this man may never have contributed anything. When he leaves this world, and when he leaves that world, will there somewhere in the universe be an improvement? Something that had benefited? No. Our consciousness is always geared to certain frames of reference. If someone like the Ari passes out of this world at age 38, then someone says, oh, he died so young. But what is young and what is old? It's all relative. The Ari lived 38 years, but his legacy lives on for hundreds of years. In fact, the Ari did not die, as he specifically told his student, that he would always return, as he returns this evening to us. He is still there for us. So what does it mean, 38 years? This little child who died at age 6. Oh, what a pity this child is cut off at such an early age. But what did this child leave? He left a legacy that 2,000 years later, we are still contemplating, trying to understand what this child was teaching. How did this child make the impression as being the interpretation of a whole section referred to as Devarim, to such an extent that Devarim is absent from any interpretation in the Zohar, and this little child, hidden away in another parsha, hidden away in Parshat Balak, becomes the interpretation. Did he live a ripe old age? Of course. Close to 2,000 years. But again, this is the way we've been programmed, our way of thinking. is most times, unfortunately, limited and relegated to the physical realm, to be overwhelmed, to be guided, to be subjected to the physical realm, of which this child wasn't. So to conclude, I think, I'm not sure, maybe next year they'll make it a little clearer to me, Be'ezrat Hashem, that why this section is in Parshat Balak, we understand. Because this little child has taught us, at least this evening, that you don't tell a book by its cover. These two people were sages. I'm sure they gave him that impression, and yet at the same time he could glean from these two people the inner recesses of their consciousness, where they were, what they were doing. That is what Parshat Devarim is really all about. If we look deeply, or below the surface of the reading, we will see secrets there that can assist us in our daily life. When I say assist us, meaning to overcome the Balaks and the Bilams that prey upon our consciousness, do not permit our consciousness to expand to the extent that we can improve our own lives. And B'zuchut of the Ari HaKadosh, we should all be zocher to not only having removed a karet from our presence this evening, but that the Ari should, like Rav Amnuna Sava, like this little boy was telling these two sages, wasn't my father behind you at all times? Let us hope that we have merited this evening to have the Ari guide us and watch over us, and so that we can be permitted to raise our consciousness to a level of understanding and enhancing our own lives. Amen.
Amen.
Chag Sameach to everyone.
Now what are you going to do? Yes.